And there we go. Welcome, everybody, to your favorite weekly episodic series, Grace Under Pressure, where we interview royal consorts from around the known world, starting with some of our favorite duchesses. This week, we are lucky to be joined by Duchess Seonaid of Atlantia. Next week, we'll be interviewing Duchess Anna of Tarragon of the East Kingdom. And let's meet our hosts.
Welcome back this week and every week to my co-host, Sir Joel de Grace, who started in the SCA 16 years ago in what is now the Kingdom of North Shield, and now lives in Callantyre. So how is Callantyre today, Joel?
It has been beautiful so far today and jovial, I would say.
Why ever would people be feeling jovial?
There's just some hopeful things going on in the world right now. That's
wonderful.
all.
I'm so glad to hear it. So Joel is currently in residence with his lady wife, the Honorable Lady Aniela, and they may have a doorbell ring in the background because of a food delivery, I've been informed. So if that happens, we will hear some barking and borking of the dogs. And we'll just all have to endure that because we're in a pandemic. So a fun fact this week about Joel is that he is a pro wrestling fan, and the story really tells itself. I don't even know how to make a joke about this that's funnier than the fact that he likes pro wrestling. So I know we don't stand much chance of alienating anybody out there by my telling you that that's a really silly hobby to enjoy, but that's okay. Whatever, to each their own.
It's a thing that we grew up with, man.
Look at us. We're sitting in costumes on Zoom interviewing people, so cast the first stone, right?
And as always, I'm joined by my co-host and primary heckler, Duchess Dagmar of Antir. Her first reign was as a princess of Signagua in the West, and she has since gone on to have 2 reigns in Antir with her husband, Duke Thorin Njálsson. First week, I got that right.
Got it. You nailed it.
Oh. This week's fun fact about her, Grace, was actually she was born in the year of the rat, which is the year that we're currently in. She's not happy that it turned out to be such a rotten year, but does appreciate that we do have a plague going on. So it may well be.
May as well be in the year of the rat, if you're going to have a plague.
It's true. Keeping it going, right?
Yeah. Well, we would like, as always, to extend a very special thank you to Ashaxi and Rifkin for hosting us on the Sisters Interview Network. And now, Joel, would you please introduce our wonderful guest?
I absolutely would be honored to. Everybody watching at home, thank you so much for joining us. We are extremely lucky to have one of the most experienced queens in the history of the SCA, really, joining us this week. Duchess Seonaid. I was so close that time too, and it's
poor Joel. Names are hard. I get it.
I'm so not good with the name part. That's why my name is just Joel. Anyways, this part's not about me. She has been playing for a great many years. She's been involved in a lot with the Kingdom of the Middle, with Atlantia. She is a member of the Order of the Laurel, Order of the Pelican. Your Grace, thank you so much for joining us this week.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting.
And we also appreciate that you're pretty far ahead in the time zone of us. So we will keep this to an hour because duchesses definitely need their beauty sleep. That's how we keep from, how we keep our composure, right? It has nothing to do with beauty and everything to do with composure. So, yeah. Yep. So, Seonaid, we would love to hear about your SCA origins, what brought you to the SCA, and maybe a little bit about what your persona is.
Well, I kind of fell into the SCA. I think it was sort of preordained. My mother was actually a PhD in medieval studies and French. She was a professor at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and she was a founder of one of the founders of the Ann Arbor Medieval Festival, which was a traveling theater group in the summers. And through that, we ended up having a number of SCA people that came to be members of the festival. So I sort of grew up knowing them and sort of just segued into the SCA from the festival. My first official event was actually Pensic 11. So that was a little while ago.
But that's quite the event of
Afterwards.
your first official event.
Yeah, I have to say, in some ways it's exciting, but I don't really recommend a major war as your first event, because then when you go to your first actual event, you're like, oh, really? This is an event? Because it suffers by comparison with a war. Doesn't matter what the event is, you're like, this is really tiny, and and of course back then events were really, really tiny compared to what most of them are now. They were very small because this was like 1980-ish, 81, 82, somewhere in there. It's a really long time ago.
Yeah, I totally understand that. My second event that I ever went to was Penzic 33, and my very first event was a small little Shire level event. So I went from a event with about 20 people to Penzic, and then went back to, a far flung fringe group of the kingdom. It was.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. But I'm originally from the Mid Realm, and it was the Shire of Cinnabar, which was in Ann Arbor, and we were a kind of an independent shire. We were part of a barony, but we were located to where we were pretty much by ourselves. And it was a wonderful, wonderful group. Everybody, we did everything. We did dance, we did cooking. Every week we got together, somebody taught a class. We did dance before fighter practices. It was an amazing group of people, really, really fun. In some ways, it was the SCA on a level that nobody plays it now. Mm-hmm. People just don't do it like that anymore. And I kind of miss it. It was a lot of fun.
Why do you think people have changed the way they do the SCA?
I think part of it is because then most of us were young. We were early 20s to late 20s. Very few people were married, had kids. Most people had jobs. They didn't have careers. You shoved 6 people in a car, threw a few piles of clothes in there. You drove to an event, you slept on somebody's floor, you fought, you drank, you ate. Everybody stayed and ate feast. You went back to someone's house and had a party, drove home the next day. Everybody was still like half in garb and half, the jeans and half of your garb. But I think a lot of it was just because we didn't have a whole real other life going on. Lots of us were college students or people who were still working at a burger place or working, or at least even if we had a real job, we didn't have kids and a mortgage and yard work and car payments. It was just it was a different world. There was no social media for people to sit 6 days a week and tear each other apart and then get together one day a week. So everybody was really happy to see each other. I think it was easier to stay warm about each other that way.
I mean, arguably part of the issue with social media is that we are learning things about people that we would just as soon not have learned. I mean, it's good that some of these behaviors or beliefs are out in the open, but it also means that we can't hide behind the veneer of the politeness of the SCA, right? So
I think it's in general, somehow people forget their manners when they get on there, and when you go to events, you actually interact with the people who go to events. When you're on social media, you spend a lot of time interacting with people who have a lot to say about the SCA, who don't actually go to events. They don't go to fighter practice. They don't build armor. They don't dance. They don't sew costumes. But boy, they have a lot they want to talk about. And most of it's negative. And I think that hurts all of us.
So, you have a wealth of experience from multiple reigns now, and but everyone starts somewhere. Every journey starts with the first step. What would be a piece of advice that you would go back and tell pre-first rain you, um, before everything? Just something that you wish you knew before your first rain.
Wow. It was not 100 years ago. Um,
Let's hear it for the peanut gallery.
that would be the 15-year-old peanut gallery over there. I think the biggest thing, and I was lucky enough to have served in enough royal households and to have been close to reigns that I personally kind of knew this, but a lot of people don't know it. Be careful, because a lot of people are going to pretend like they're your friend, and boy, they're going to love you so much and they're going to be all over you, and they're not your friend. They're the friend of that shiny piece of metal on your head, and as soon as you step down, they're going to drop you like a hot potato. And you need to be very careful about who you talk to and what you talk to people about, and keep the actual people you can trust close to you. Keep your confidences to those people, and just, I'm not saying don't make new friends. Absolutely make new friends, and hopefully you'll come out of your reign with some wonderful new friends. But just be careful, because there are Klingons and suck-ups out there, and they can hurt you really badly. And you need to be careful of that. And I've seen a lot of people come out of their first reign, and a month or so later, they're just like, I don't understand. These people don't even talk to me anymore. And they're just devastated. And it's really hard to watch that happen to them.
So, what would you say would be probably a humorous experience that you had that was a kind of a like a learning experience for you? You know, something where you made a public mistake where you were just able to go, nope. Or
I can give you one of the biggest, worst ones I've ever made. It was my last reign. One of my head ladies in waiting, she had managed things, and she was the one who would kept my lists and who wrote everything down and kept things organized. And she had done the list for the last court, and the people who got what we call an undine, it's like our thank you from the Queen award. And of course, I was planning to give one to her, but I didn't have her put it on the list because she was the one doing the list. And Her Majesty had a blonde moment and did not tell the herald separately to put it on the list. And literally, I had just taken the crown off and handed it to Duke Logan, who was my successor. And I've known Logan for years. And I went, oh, I didn't give Adelheid an undine. And I started to pull the crown back from Logan. And literally I was going to go, I'm sorry, wait, I need to keep this for just one more minute. And Logan's looking at me. He's like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, okay, never mind. I can't do that. But I almost took it back from him. And I was going to say, wait, I'm sorry. You got to wait a minute. And I decided that
what's happening here? Is this a coup?
Yeah. And it was like, I decided that even though he knew me really well and I probably could have gotten away with it, I decided that was probably just a little bit too much bad form and it probably wouldn't go over very well. But that just goes to show that even on the eighth reign, you can do something just completely boneheaded. And there was no excuse for it, none whatsoever. I had been thinking about it all morning and I just completely blonded on it. And I just, it was terrible.
Oh man.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, and it is good to know that after successive reigns, you can still have those moments, and I guess it's that theater piece of it. What do you present to the public? What are you showing, and what are you not showing in those moments, right? Because people don't need to know there's a problem, but they're there.
But I certainly almost showed that one. Oh, here's another one. You like to have little embarrassing moments. I think it was that the coronation for that reign, maybe, or crown journey. I don't remember. It might have been the reign before. They really blur together. And we're at head table for coronation feast, being all elegant and, all queenly and inspirational and all that good stuff. And a dear friend of mine, Mistress Magdalena, was cooking the feast, and she had made these heavenly, heavenly things. They're little dried apricots, and you soak them in rose water, and you split them open, and you put this filling in them of it's whipped cream, and it has rose water and orange flower water in it, and you fill them with the cream, and they have a very distinct resemblance to something. And they're delicious, and I loved them. And I asked Magdalena's wife, who was serving them, what are these called? They're just nummy. And Yinega said, well, they don't have a name yet. You could name them, Your Majesties. And I said, in my not inside voice, in the middle of the hall from high table, okay, these are cream-filled fruit vaginas. And the whole hall got really quiet. And they have been cream-filled fruit vaginas ever since.
Very good. I approve of all of this. I mean, I'm sure we could Latin it up or something, but I mean, that's pretty awesome.
And we serve them at the Rose Tourney at Pensick every year. So.
All right.
That is awesome. I mean, vagina just means sheath, right?
And that's exactly what they look like. They're a nice.
Okay. We're good. Yeah, we're good.
And it was just so funny because the whole front of the hall got just dead silent, and then that silence kind of spread towards the back of the hall. And I looked up and down the high table, and I said, "That was not my inside voice, was it?" And everybody at the table looked at me and went, "No, it really was not, Your Majesty." So yeah,
Awesome.
So I'm not necessarily, like, if you hadn't guessed, the most upright and solemn and well-behaved queen that you'll ever find. Not so much.
Well, one of the things that I know is true of someone perhaps who's reigned as often as you, or who can reign again, is that you do have social capital, and it means you have some social capital to burn. You can afford a few of those before people start to, wonder what kind of person you are, or don't keep them wondering, Make it clear exactly what kind of person you are.
No.
So you became a Duchess in 1990. Does that sound right to you?
So, because I think the first reign was 88, and we did back-to-backs. The second one was 89.
So I'm sure the SCA has changed a lot since then. And we did already talk about the effect of, say, social media and the aging of the SCA population and what that's doing. But what are some other perspectives you have on what has changed the most? And what I'd love to hear is what you think has changed for the better in the SCA since you started playing or since you became a Duchess.
I think one of the things I love the most is the generational effect, is seeing the kids grow up. I mean, as you've heard from the Peanut Gallery, I have a 15-year-old daughter who's grown up in the SCA, and I have a 28-year-old son who has grown up in the SCA. I have friends who are on grandchildren. We got to knight a gentleman once with his mother present. She was a member of the SCA. He grew up in the SCA. So it wasn't even just that, it wasn't like his mundane mother came. She was a member of the SCA. And that was an incredibly moving experience to me, having my son there and knighting someone whose mother was there. I love watching that happen, because when my son was little, there weren't very many kids in the SCA, and there wasn't much for kids to do. And so as more kids have come in, and watching children's activities happen, and the children's fete at Pensick, which Duchess Ariel and I started, and just it's not just extended the life of the SCA, but it's expanded the life of the SCA. And it's really exciting. You watch somebody that you watched grow up and watch them learn things, and now you watch them go out and teach things. There's a young man I know, I watched him grow up, you know, from a little kid to a skinny teenager to a handsome, wonderful young man. And I watched him mentor my son as a teenage fighter and take him by the hand and, you know, stand out at tourney fields and watch him fight and teach him and help him on his way. And it's really amazing. Kids who were little yesterday are now cooking feasts, and it's the kids is one of the big ones. I was actually watching a videotape a few months ago before we got rid of our last VCR. We still have a video of the first crown tourney Michael won for me. And it's very different looking because you have maybe one pavilion that somebody has as a field tent and everything else is still tarps on poles, and maybe one or two people has a chair and everybody else is sitting on the ground and there's no pretty list field. But the enthusiasm and the energy, and everybody's really excited and everybody's really focused on the tournament. So the pretty is nice, but to me, the pretty that we've added isn't as important as like the children. And I also really love the amount of new things we've learned. I mean, that's one thing the internet has helped with so much, is the amount of resource we have available. I mean, when I joined the SCA, I was really into cooking, and you could get fabulous feasts and to the king's taste. And if you knew somebody and could, you know, get them to let you look at it, you might get to see a copy of Dining with William Shakespeare. And that was basically it, you know. And now cookbooks, and costume books, and that's exciting. That's so exciting. The amount of research and the amount of different things that people can do because the information is out there. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and you know, that's awesome to hear, because some of my closest friends and, you know, my personal heroes of the SCA are the second generation players that have been stepping up, and they found the love of the SCA for their own, and they're still spreading that love and generosity to others that they grew up in. You know, so yeah, that's awesome to hear. Sorry.
I'd love to hear a little bit about how the reigns in the Atlantia are staffed, and I thought we could also look at some of your photos as we talk about that, and talk about you know, do you have retinue, or do you have court, or do you have retainers? What do you call them? You know, how do you have a guard, and do you have a captain of the guard? You know, that sort of thing. So little inner kingdom anthropology.
Yeah, it varies a lot from queen to queen. Some of them do guards. I haven't done guards so much the last few reigns because I find that it tends to pull the fighters off the field, and I like the guys to fight. In Atlantia also, our rapier fighters have really taken it to their hearts. They serve the princess and they serve the queen. So anytime you need guards for anything, the rapier fighters are there. They will be there for anything you ever need. So I think most of our queens haven't done guards so much. Some of them do. I mean, it's absolutely a personal preference. It's not like you're forbidden. But I have a champion. In fact, I usually have two champions. I usually have a heavy and I usually have a rapier. My rapier champion is usually I go for both of them. I try to go for somebody I know at least a little bit, but somebody who's younger that I want to get out into the public eye and be seen. Some of the newer queens, the younger queens, they tend to go for people that they know well. A lot of times someone who's a peer, maybe who's a mod and a knight, because they want that experience behind them. They want that advice, which I think is a really good idea for someone who doesn't have the experience behind them. For me, I know where I'm going to go for advice anytime I need it anyway. So for me, I like to get my new boys and girls out there and get them recognition.
Well, let's take a look at some of the folks that, some of your reigns and some of the people that have been there with you.
This one is from Atlantia's 30-year anniversary. That was Michael, my husband, and I entering into the opening ceremonies for our 30-year anniversary. That event was the summer. It was the same year as Pensick 40, and it was just unbelievably hot. It was, oh my God, so hot. I just can't even, just like being on a pancake griddle that whole weekend, but it was a great event. The left-hand picture is my daughter, who has stolen the crown, along with the daughter of a friend of mine, Duchess Isabel, who has stolen her mother's ducal coronet. So that is the next generation coming to go. And the other picture is myself with my daughter. We were at an event. It was a Hostelud. It's a horse event. And it turned out later she was actually sick, but she was determined she was going to ride horses. So she didn't give in.
Yes, I did.
Until after she had ridden horses. That was at the last crown tourney that my husband won for me. And the young man in the red tunic behind me is my son. And that was, I think, before actually, I think I was going out to wish luck to my husband's opponent for the finals, and somebody caught it from across the field. This was at Golf Wars, and we were at the Meridian Rose tournament, and all the Atlantean ladies of the Rose were presenting a united front for our fighters. And Mary Grace was actually, I think that was the year she was the autocrat of Golf Wars. And
I was going to say, we see at least one other face there that we know. So,
well, but she's an Atlantean Rose too,
Yep.
because she was an Atlantean queen, and so she had stopped in. This was at the same horseback riding event, and this is Duchess Anna from the East and I, and we were pointing out to Duchess Anna, who will be with you next week, that had she showed up at the event, she would have been sitting in that chair, but she wasn't there. The chair was empty. We have a gentleman in our kingdom, Baron Barolf, who at most of our 12th nights comes, and he is kind enough to take the absolutely gorgeous portraits of members of our kingdom. This is myself and Duchess Lynette to the left, and to the right is Duchess Adelheid, the one that I did not give the award to, they were my head retainers during that reign. This is my daughter. This is the peanut gallery. This is a picture that pretty much everybody in the kingdom has described as Seonaid has that "you had better get the hell out of the way because she is on the way to go kill somebody" look.
It's good to have that look.
The steamroller look.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the something just caught my attention, and not in a good way, is what I've been told that look is. I actually think it's just the sun was in my eyes, but what do I know?
I agree.
But it's okay. This is my husband Michael and I processing for that last crown tournament that he won for me, which was actually a surprise. I didn't know he was planning on winning that day, but he had decided I would enjoy being queen at Golf Wars because I've always been a Pensick queen. And
You like that, Joel?
you
You didn't know he was planning on winning that day. So
Yeah, hey.
I thought he was there for a different job, and I didn't know he had intentions of winning. I thought we were just there because he had a job to do in the tournament, and then we were done. So it was a surprise. And this was, there's an event we have every February called Emir in our kingdom, and routinely Emir has horrible weather. Snow, ice storms, freezing rain. It's disgusting. And this particular Emir, it was warm. It was like 60, 65 degrees. It was gorgeous. And so, as you can see, we were several of my best friends, and we were just relaxing and hanging out. It was just absolutely wonderful.
absorbing
wonderful
some
day.
vitamin D.
Yeah, watching
Yeah.
the fighting and just chatting, and it just was a great day. This is kind of, I put this one in because this is kind of an example of what I mean about the kids. Um, these are actually kids from 3 different families and 2 different kingdoms, and they have literally grown up together. They only see each other generally once a year at Pensick, and yet they all regard each other as family. They stay in touch over Facebook. I said 4 kids, 3 families. Oh, Peanut Gallery.
Yep.
I
Tell
was
the
a
Peanut
peanut gallery.
Gallery we'll interview her when she's a Duchess.
And they all regard each other as family. They stay in touch over Facebook. They talk to each other, and when they see each other, it's like they're never apart. And I look at this and I see our future.
Yeah.
Plus, I see something we've built and we've made. And it's kind of cool. This is Duchess Ariel the Golden. You had said something about wanting to know something about some of my inspirations, and Ariel is definitely one of my inspirations. She was one of my best friends. She's very well known on the East Coast of the kingdom of the SCA. She was very inspirational to a lot of people. She died 11 years ago of breast cancer, and lots of people loved her very much. And she had come up with a concept for a tournament, a group tournament, which we ended up developing into what we called our Tournament of the Golden Rose. And this picture here is a tournament from the Tournament of Golden Rose. And that particular year, I was queen for that tournament. And this is all the roses who fielded teams for the tournament that year. Plus, we always had a team every year that represented what we called our heavenly roses, which was all of our roses who had passed away, because we had 3 or 4 of them, not just Ariel. This is a Pensick court that Michael and I did, which I included mostly just to kind of show the royal courts at Pensick, opening ceremonies at Pensick are just one of those really great moments. And I'm sure that's true. I mean, it's great at Gulf Wars also. I just didn't have as good a picture of a Gulf Wars court. And I'm sure all the great wars have, these really beautiful moments. And these are some of the moments I think that really stick with people in the SCA, and their moments people really carry with them. I mean, let's face it, who else does a hobby where you get to have a moment like that and you get to see something like that?
I know it's something where we reigned one of our reign. Well, actually, technically, both of our reigns were during a Pensick, but we didn't get to go the first time. So the second time we went, and that was my first and only Pensick, was as queen. And it is pretty astounding to process in as queen, and just the sheer number of people at Pensick. But what other hobby do you get to walk into any area or room and 800 people or 500 people stand up because you just walked in the room? I mean, that's pretty cool. And it's hard to go back to your job after that, especially when, if you have a rough time at your work, and you're like, hey, 3 days ago, 500 people stood up when I walked in the room, and now.
Now I'm doing this, especially after you've done it for like a week or 2 solid at a war. It's really hard to come up with. Like, it's like, oh, this sucks.
Right.
This is just, and this was at Gulf Wars, and this is a group of ladies of the Rose. We're just watching some tournament, probably a Rose tournament. I can tell you on this day, we had found, the adult Capri Suns, the big foil pouch, like juice pouches, only they're alcoholic. We had sort of discovered those at the store, and we had filled a cooler with assorted ones and a lot of ice, and we brought that cooler up, and so everybody was doing different flavors, and we were passing them all up and down. And then Duke Alaric brought us a great big blue bottle of wine that was literally like 3 feet tall. So we're pretty much all sitting down at this point because that was probably our best choice right about then.
And
'Cause
do I
we
see some
had
a stuffed unicorn in there?
Yes, that's Duchess Calissa, and she's frequently accompanied by stuffed unicorns.
I saw that in the other photo from the tournament that she was holding a stuffed unicorn.
Yeah, that's something you'll see a lot. This is myself and Duchess Lynette, and it's just in there. It's a crown tourney. We were all handing out roses, and I couldn't find my coronet. And so all the other roses, so I didn't have mine on, where we were all up front handing out the roses. So the other roses were making fun of me because I didn't have my coronet on. So I went and stole my husband's, which is why that one's kind of hanging down a little low. So I had to take all of my hair and stuff it up in the back of the coronet to make it stay on my head at all. And so that's Lynette is laughing at me because I had to steal Michael's coronet.
And here, I thought it was a nice moment between friends sharing a kind word.
Well, but no, it was a good moment. Everybody had a good time watching me go steal Michael's coronet.
That's awesome.
This is an older picture, and this is in here because, especially as we're in the SCA for a long time, we meet people and we bring people into our lives, and we have lots of people that we love, and inevitably we also, especially, we've talked quite a bit about getting older, we do lose some people. And this is a gentleman named Kalen Dondrade, and he was a squire of my husband's, and unfortunately we lost him. He died 30 years ago. Unfortunately, he was only about 23 years old, but we still remember him, we still love him, and there are a lot of people who still love him. And in fact, somebody did a poem recently, a gentleman in our kingdom who writes beautiful poetry, and he was immortalizing people that he knew from anybody he had heard about from any kingdom, anyone he had become aware of who had lost, who had passed on in the SCA, and he had written them into this poem. And then he did a big page and he had printed the poem, and he had put photographs around it of people that he had found. And Kalen was one of the ones on there, but I just included that one because I think it's important in our SCA life to keep the people that we've lost, whether through death or we've lost touch with them, or for one reason or another, we've become divided from them. I think it's important to keep them with us as well. That's my little hokey moment. This is my minion. This is Lady Sarah. I don't have apprentices or proteges because I don't like them to be locked into a path. I like all paths to be open to them, so they're minions. And right now, actually, she's my own. No, I have two minions. Yeah, I have two minions. I have Sarah or Jane. Excuse me. I'm a bad peer. No biscuit. This is Jane, Lady Jane. And then I have one other one who has been out of the country, and she's just recently come back. So. And this is actually the same day with the coronet thing. This is before I went and stole my husband's coronet. So actually I should have reversed the picture. It's just a really nice picture. I love how beautiful all of the ladies look. This is Duchess Simone on the right, and Duchess Pedrega behind me, and Duchess Lynette in the back. And I just thought they all looked so beautiful that I had to include this picture.
Wonderful. I'm going to stop sharing now. If I did that successfully, it looks like I did.
Right.
Go ahead.
What was that? One of the things that I really enjoyed looking at pictures is just seeing like how you stayed true to like the love of the SCA there. With the picture of the squire who passed away. and just the love of the people that you're around. You know, that's the truest vision of the SCA right there, is that communal love. And so I think that's really a really beautiful thing that was shown in there. I wanted to say that before I lost my train of thought on it. So.
Well, are there particular customs in the in Atlantia that you really love? You know, things I know other kingdoms do other things. Like in the West, they have the Rose Tournament, and you know, there's lovely customs that we tend to develop within a certain kingdom's culture. And what in Atlantia do you most love?
One of the ones I really like, I talked a little bit about, is the way that the rapier fighters have taken the princess and the queen as their own, and they do things like, and they invest humor in it as well as honor. Like at Pensick and at Gulf Wars, the princess is attended by, well, it used to be the yellow scarves, and the queen was attended by the white scarves, and now we have mods, and they've messed up the whole system. But they would take them, you would have their Secret Service squads, and so they would all wear dark sunglasses, and they would come out as the Secret Service squads and would escort them to Midnight Madness to go shopping.
Nice.
With the dark sunglasses, and you know, they would have wagons to carry her loot and make sure that they had drinks for the princess and the queen. And it's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of silliness, and it's fun, but they can also be very, you know, very serious when they need to be. Rose tourneys have been kind of an important thing for us. That has fallen a little bit off in the kingdom since Golden Rose ended, but I think we have a real feel that needs to come back. I run the Duchess Anna again, well, not Duchess Anna, it's now Duchess Kenna. Duchess Anna and I started, we took over the Rose Tourney at Pensick a number of years ago, and then when Anna stopped going to Pensick, Duchess Kenna has joined with me. So we do the Rose Tourney at Pensick every year, and it's modeled very much on the rapier tourney at Gulf Wars as far as what I wanted to get as a feel. One of the things Atlanteans do is they like to serve the crown. So most crowns don't have a big personal retinue. You have a couple of people like your main head retainers, but then the retainers line up people from every local group at events you're going to go to. And they do it also for wars because people want to retain, they want to help, they want to do things for the crown. One of the ones that's become big is usually once or twice a reign, there will be, sometimes it's done as a competition, sometimes just as a display for regalia, largesse. So people will make 6 or 12 items and it'll be in a competition, but then at the end of it, all the items are donated to the crown to use as largesse. And that's really cute. And people come up with the loveliest, just little items. Our scribal group is amazing. They are so talented and they turn out huge amounts of work. They do so much work that they do scrolls for other kingdoms. Wow. Because we have more people. Evidently, we've hit the point where they have caught up all our backlog and they're now doing scrolls for people in other kingdoms.
That's great.
You know, it's really kind of cool, and we've started to come up with a lot of really unique stuff. We've been doing, I'm sure everybody's doing virtual courts at this point, but we're doing virtual courts. I'm actually the autocrat for our 12th night this year, which is kind of messing with me. I've never done a virtual event, and I would say I'm struggling, but it's more like floundering madly, trying to figure out this whole virtual thing. It's much easier to do a real event. It really is.
Totally.
Much easier. But people we're very service-oriented kingdom, so it's kind of hard to, I would say overall our main tradition is service. It's people just dive in and do things that need to be done. And it's kind of hard to define that down into this one thing or that one thing. It's like Atlanteans see something that need to be done and they just go get it done. At Pensick, which is huge, for years and years, we have put in more volunteer hours. We're always at least number 3 behind the East and the Middle. And some years we put in more volunteer hours than the Middle.
That's because everybody else is so hot and it's so humid that they can't move, and they're in their camps, like just packing bags of ice all over their bodies. Okay, maybe that was just us.
No, it's a couple of years ago for the Rose Tourney. One of the marshals came around and said, well, I may have to shut this tourney down because it's too hot. And we were like, no, we've got this covered. It's okay. We're watching everything. We've got it. I mean, it was horribly hot, but we had water. We supply beverages and refreshments. The East Kingdom lets us use their giant pavilion, so we keep all the fighters out of the sun. You know, it's like, we've got this, we know how to do this. And he's like, well, I don't think you understand how hot it is. I said, I don't think you understand. This is every event we do ever all summer long. We know how to do this. And they threw the rapier fighters off of the upper field because it was too hot. So all the Atlantian and Southern rapier fighters came down to join the tournament because they were like, well, shoot, come on, we're just gonna come down here and come fight.
Well, just if you ever have to host people from Ontario, or probably the Bay Area too, I'm gonna guess, though they get out to their outlying areas, which can be pretty brutally hot too. But just give them a care package and tell the queen that the ice pack goes up under the skirt, not, that's where you really need it. You put it up under your skirt, just put it right on in there. Trust me, that's where you're, yeah, that's good too. That's good too. But the ice pack goes up under the skirt. There's a major artery. It cools you right down. There's no shame in not dying. So that's, yeah, give them a care package and include a special ice pack just for that. And that's.
One year we were up on the dais.
For Joel.
And we were like 3 of us queens were having a discussion about why you wear bike shorts under your garb to prevent chafing. And one of the queens, who was from like North Shield or something, where I guess you never have to worry about chafing, she was a little bit new and she was a little straight-laced. She was just horrified that we were all having this discussion about chafing. But you know, the rest of us were.
Yep.
It's legit. It's like,
yep.
These are the things I know now. So now include ice packs, baskets with no handles on them. I'm learning all sorts of good stuff here.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be handy if I ever stop choking in the semifinals of Crown. So.
And if it's going to be a war where it's chilly, like Gulf Wars, or I'm sure some of the Western wars, fuzzy fleece pants. Yeah. Fuzzy fleece pants. I have put those in a lot of royal gift baskets. You'd be amazed. I've had phone calls. Oh my God, these fuzzy fleece pants are incredible.
In Ontario, you just the weather is so much easier to accurately predict now, because this is a part of the country where a lot of climate and weather scientists like to come to study weather. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting how accurate they can get it now. So there's no excuse to showing up to an event without your galoshes if there's going to be rain. And you see a lot of people in their dresses with rubber boots on underneath, because they actually read the weather reports and knew to pack accordingly. So
there you go.
And another important thing to pack every event is your membership card. Make sure that you renew your membership, everybody. The SCA only exists as long as we support it. So, Your Grace, we actually this is a great segue, because we were just given some advice about ice packs and things like that. But one of the questions that I really like to ask is, what is the piece of advice, like what's the core of the advice that you give to someone when you go into their vigil tent?
Wow, that is that. For the first 6 months in your order meetings, don't talk, listen. Unless you really, 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 like, if they're talking about your best friend or somebody you really, truly know something about, and then be very brief and stick absolutely to the facts, but for the most part, be quiet and listen. When you answer polling letters, try your hardest to keep your personality out of it. Try to be as I don't want to say non-judgmental isn't the right word, as I just election brain. I don't have the right words.
Nonpartisan?
To critique rather than criticism. Yes, nonpartisan. If you cannot, and we all have these moments, if you cannot divorce your feelings, if you cannot give an accurate assessment of the person because you just can't stand them to that point, you just have feelings that are going to override it, and we all have people we feel about that way, let's be honest, then abstain. Be honest. I'm sorry, my personal feelings do not allow me to evaluate this person appropriately, and I'm going to abstain. It's not that hard to do. Step back, recuse yourself. If you don't know what enough about them, then don't say no, say abstain, or go learn something about them, one of the two. But think before you answer polling letters. Please provide the Crown some commentary. It really helps them, especially if they're new Crowns. Those are two of the big ones, is because a lot of people have no idea. Pollings are a whole new world, especially if they aren't members of lower polling orders. It really can be a real scary thing. And one of the other big ones is if someone says, addresses you by the wrong title, smile and don't say anything about it. Just smile and say, thank you, I'm happy to meet you. Because you know what, it really doesn't matter. When I meet people, I say, hi, I'm Seonaid. Unless it is a formal occasion where I actually need to use a title, I just say, hi, I'm Seonaid. I don't need to tell somebody I'm Mr. Seonaid, I'm Duchess Seonaid, whatever. It's fine.
Unlocked.
And if somebody gets their panties in a wad because the title's wrong, that's their problem, not yours.
Actually, that just made me realize I don't even have my title on my Zoom name here. That's my bad. So when you come into the SCA, there's a lot of people that when you come in, like you have your first fighter practice, your first gathering, whatever it is, and you see someone there that you just immediately identify. You want that to be like, that's your hero. Like you can look at them, and maybe hero is the wrong term because you don't have, don't meet your heroes. But like someone that you can immediately identify as being, who you want to be when you grow up. Who was that for you when you first started playing? And do you want to give them a shout out?
Duke Talamar. I would say Talamar was probably that person. He was Prince. He wasn't my. It's so hard because, like I said, I sort of slithered into the SCA, but he was the first Prince that I remember as Prince. Andrew of Seldom-Rest was king and Talamar was Prince, and it was not a good reign with Andrew as king, and Talamar was he was so gracious, and he had to pick up a lot of things. He had to, it's kind of like as if Biden had been Trump's vice president, he had to pick up a lot of things. He had to make a lot of apologies. He had to smooth a lot of things down. A really good example is at Pensick that year, the war had been decided. The Woods battle was the last battle, and the war points had already decided the war. The middle had lost, but it's still the Woods battle. Everybody loves the Woods, and Andrew was drunk in his tent and would not go to the Woods. He would not lead the Mid-Realm Army to the Woods. Talamar was already packed up. He had his car packed up to go because he's a school teacher and he had to be back to get things ready for school. He unloaded his car, got his armor out, got dressed, and went and led the Mid-Realm Army into the Woods. He was the guy. And he's a super, super nice person. His wife at the time Duchess Iceland, who is the one that Mount Iceland at Pensick is named for. Super, super nice, wonderful, wonderful people. His current lady is also very sweet, very nice. But he was that guy for me. So I would have to say Duke Talamar.
That is awesome. Dag.
It helps if I turn my microphone on. Sorry. I was just going to say that it strikes me that our heroes and our mentors often, you know, they are people who they exemplify certain things, but also probably work hard to make the SCA better for not just their own household, but for everyone. And I think about the purpose of rank or privilege in the SCA and the purpose of, you know, when we elevate people to a rank, you know, part of that inherent in that is that responsibility. But some people do a better job of it than others. Some people do a better job of being that exemplar and both using their privilege well, but also reducing harm for others or protecting people whose interests aren't being met or who are vulnerable. And, you know, when I think about my heroes and my mentors, that really looms large in my mind. They're the people who stick up for people when there isn't anybody to do it, or they're the people who step in without any thought about the attention they'll receive or the thanks that they'll receive, you know. And I'm guessing that if we all started compiling a list of who those people are for us, it would be extensive. There are so many in the SCA.
I think it would be, and I think there would be a surprising amount of crossover because if you're in the SCA for any length of time, you start to know some of the same people, especially if you travel at all. Because I've been lucky, there are things I've wanted to do I haven't gotten to do. Like I'd love to go to Great Western, I'd love to go to Lily's. I want to go to all the major wars, and I've only made it to Gulf Wars, Estrella, and Pensick. But I'd love to make it to all the major wars. But I've been lucky enough, especially through Pensick and through Estrella, that I have had friends from all over the known world. And it's a really good feeling because you get to know people from everywhere. And so you get to know something about all the different kingdoms, and you get to know a little bit about the different cultures. And I remember one year, years ago, I couldn't even tell you how long ago, I don't even remember. It was probably our first or second reign, maybe the third, but 1990-ish. We were invited to dinner with the King and Queen of Atlantia at Pensick. And there's royal encampments for all the royals at Pensick. So you have this big open block, and there's this little tiny camp because there were I don't know, 5 of them or 7 of them in the center. And the King and Queen had, I think it was Mongolian personas, I believe. And I can't remember their names. I have a horrible memory for names. Sweetest people. And they had done this beautiful dinner that they had cooked. It was absolutely delicious. And the gifts they gave were these lovely olive wood chopsticks, which I had mine until my daughter was about 2 or 3, and she chewed the tips off of them. I don't know why. I turned around one day, she said, you chewed the tips off. She chewed the tips off of my chopsticks. But I used to wear them in my hair. But they were just so sweet, incredibly, incredibly sweet. And we were camped not too far from them, and His Majesty started dropping in. And at one point you'll have to ask Anna about this, we were playing croquet in the camp, and His Majesty came down, and Anna roped him into playing croquet. And they ended up taking the game out of the camp, and they were playing croquet down the roads of the war with the King of Atlantia. Clearly had no idea quite what had happened, but he seemed to have fun. But
Atlantia has transitioned to bocce with light up balls at night.
Balls, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Try that.
Croquet, that means you have a weapon in your hand. If you just take away the mallet and just give people light up balls out in the grass, it's so much safer.
Yeah, I was introduced to the light up bocce at Great Western a couple of years ago, and that was awesome.
Oh, we're gonna have to try that because we used to play Cambach here, and somehow Cambach has fallen off. We need to bring Cambach back.
I mean, we need to be in person at events,
Well, yeah, but we can
and
plan.
then we'll.
We have plans.
I don't know. Can we? Somebody
Plans.
needs to come up with a virtual bocce.
We could do that.
Uh,
Sure, there's
Joel,
guys who do
come
that.
on, Joel.
No, no, I'm already really bad at at managing this project, so we're gonna find someone else.
So I'm curious. Oh, by the way, Ashaxi thinks that the royalty in question was Torquil and Ludwiga, because
That sounds right.
they would have had Mongolian reign.
And did he have dark hair? And well, then dark hair and a dark beard, fairly short. I think. Yeah, super nice people. God, they were just nice as could be.
And Ludwiga is such an amazing artist and so expert in her field of research in the SCA that she has made items for modern museum displays,
Wow.
which is very cool. She's really astounding. So speaking of people who are astounding and inspiring, what keeps you in the SCA after all of this time? You know, your peerages were conferred so many years ago. You did say you're a bit of a reign junkie, but what do you continue to work and strive for, and what keeps you going?
Well, the biggest thing that keeps me going is the people, because it's my friends, it's the people, because none of them live really close to me. All my closest friends, nobody lives really close to me.
Yeah.
So if I want to see them, I have to go to events. I have to go places. It's doing things with people. It's dropping in. A friend of mine loves to do feasts. He likes to do meat and stuff, and he'll call me and he'll go, do you want to do the bread for my feast? Sure, I'll go do the bread for your feast. I love doing things like Queen's teas. Somebody wanted a consort's spread for a crown tourney, just something where people could come by and pick things up. And I love doing that. It's not period. I don't do period. I do, fairly little nom noms and cheesecake bites and cream-filled fruit vaginas and stuff like that. Last year we didn't have a bid for 12th night, and I got us into this site that honestly it's a dream site. It's a hotel in Richmond, outside of not Richmond, Lynchburg, Charlottesville. Oh, terrible election brain. But it looks like it was built in like 1880, and the outside of it has Tudor timbering, and it was amazing. And now I'm doing virtual 12th night this year, because that's what old used queens do: is give me a call and what do you need done. I'm here to do the things that call me and tell me what you need done. I'm 1/3 of the regalia committee, which is basically our job is we check the stuff, we find out what we need to replace, what needs to be fixed. We make sure things don't get lost, things get repaired, stuff like that. It's very unofficial. It's not like a real job. It's an unofficial thing, but it just needs to get done. I don't think I got one award. I actually got a little award for crediting 12th night. It was amazing. It's the first time I've gotten an award in years and years and years, but it's not, when you're at this level, you don't really get awards, and it's fine because that's not what you're doing it for.
Well, what about your laurel? I mean, you are a laurel. What is your art, and what do you continue to work on?
Well, my laurel is actually in costuming, and I'm sitting here wearing a dress that actually I bought from Arm Street. So my laurel's in costuming, and I'm wearing purchased garb. I haven't actually sewn much in a long time because my job for the last few years has been with a formal wear company where I spend most of my time repairing formal dresses and rebeading things and fixing things that customers have torn. So frankly, by the time I get home, I'm like, so I just don't want to. So I'm trying really hard to get reinvigorated. I've actually cleaned out my sewing room and reorganized all the fabric and bought a new machine. And I'm really trying to get reinvigorated and excited about making new stuff. I'm very excited about the idea of making garb for my daughter now that she has finally slowed down on growing enough to where I could make her something and she won't outgrow it in 6 months. But yeah, I want to actually really get back into that because I haven't done that in a long time.
Same.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's not, you know.
Well, but here's the thing, for now anyway, you only have to make clothes from like here up. So you should just make yourself a series of like bib dresses that, you know, just don't stand up suddenly.
I need to start making partlets. This is the perfect.
There you go. And they could be super fancy with all, and you can just be like, look at all this new garb I have. This is awesome.
Yeah, that would be terrific.
I'm totally rocking gym shorts and Crocs off camera. So, you know.
Crocs aren't shoes. There's a story there. Shaxi and I can regale you with that someday.
Not like I'm wearing Crocs right now. Rainbow Crocs.
So, what do you think the SCA is going to look like once the pandemic is over? Do you think the virtual content that's been created is going to continue? Do you think that we're going to try and go back to how things used to be? Like, where do you see the SCA going once we're able to start playing again?
I have a feeling that it's going to be a mixture at first, because it's not going to be that this pandemic is going to end and boom, we get to go back to life as usual. It's going to be a long, slow, painful process. And I suspect it's likely to be a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. We may get doors opening and then they shut. Like right now in our kingdom, there are certain limited activities being allowed, but with the way the numbers are going and the way they're predicting, it wouldn't surprise me if those activities get pulled back again. So I think I think we're going to see the virtual stuff for a while yet to come. I think ultimately you're going to see most of the virtual stuff kind of get put on hold, although I think it's great because we've had to cancel 2 coronations here in less than 5 years, one for a hurricane and one for a blizzard. And that caused a lot of problems. Hey, we could potentially never have to do that again. You know, we could work around it virtually.
And it's nice that the technology, the technology is compatible with that now. I think, you know, in Ontario, we have some issues with geography where you look at a map and it looks like things are close together, but it's actually separated by a ferry ride or a mountain pass. And you can't just pop over to things sometimes. The traffic here is it's some of the worst in the country to get through, like the major metropolitan areas here. And so you can't just hop out on a Wednesday night and go to a regional peerage meeting or pop into that event that is on the same weekend as a major event that's in like a sporting event. And suddenly you're like stuck and you can't go places. So I think there's some promise now that people have become accustomed to using things like Zoom, that we'll have more of an appetite for this later, that when things, you know, it's great to be in person, but when we just can't have everyone in person, we'll have more comfort with the technology that will allow us to
and
do
if you're
things.
trying to hold a major peerage meeting at an event, especially if it's an event you know everybody can't make it to,
right?
You know, open up a Zoom meeting at the event. Like we do this event, it's an event. It's all it is we do meetings. It's not in garb, you wear mundanes. It's an event to hold meetings, with the idea being that then we don't have to have many meetings at other events. It never seems to really make that happen, but
Funny that.
Everybody hates it. You know, you burn up an event weekend, and a weekend you could be, and it's the first week in December. So you're like, oh, I could be doing Christmas stuff, and I'm
Yep.
driving across the state
Right.
to go to this. And so this year we'll do it virtually this year. And hopefully after this, we will always do it virtually, because
Yeah.
nobody likes going to an event.
I mean, when we do, we call them crown councils, and when they happen, there's usually a big fighter practice at the event. So it's not terrible for those folks, but it does kind of stink to have to go to an event and I mean, you pay a site fee to sit in meetings. It's not the most exciting thing. So I think you're right that having them online for some of what we need to do, it's harder for the Laurels. I think sometimes it's really nice to be able to handle things that people have made, but it's not insurmountable, and it's not how we want to play. But honestly, if we're just going to a bunch of meetings at an event, it takes away from our time that we get to socialize and do the things that we love.
Like for the Laurels, we have an event in December, and then the first week in February, we have Kingdom Arts and Sciences. And everybody really encourages all of your proteges to bring all of your apprentices to bring all their best stuff out there. And that's where you really are hoping to be able to see people's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully.
Well, we started having an event here. Charles de Bourbon brought the idea, and then people have just really run with it, called Athenaeum, which is a non-Laurel display event. And there's no judging, it's just an opportunity to show off what you do. And
that's basically what our Kingdom Arts and Sciences is.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, I think the Athenaeum sounds very familiar. I think we've had some input. I think somebody brought some input back from that to help us a couple of years ago change how we were doing things, because that sounds really familiar to me.
Yeah, I mean, we've only done 3 of them here, but it's been a huge success. We had to do it virtually this year, which wasn't ideal, but it is neat. You know, normally our arts and sciences event is a competition, and so it's just a really different climate than a display only event.
Ours is not a competition usually. There may be, like, somebody may sponsor like a competition or something. The overall thing, it's intended to be display and lots of commentary. We encourage everybody to put out books or cards so that you can get commentary. We ask the Laurels to all bring tokens, to leave tokens and to please talk to people. And
Indonesia did something similar, and me being a stick jock and Duke Sean being a stick jock, we made it into a competition between ourselves, and there were hashtags created, and somebody may have had a sticker that said hashtag Team Joel on it. Because I'm not familiar with how it goes. Unfortunately, some civilians or mundane stuff kept me from being able to actually ever show my entry for that one. But yeah, it was but that's what happens when you get stick jocks.
You know what we call that? And not just but I'm sure maybe it's more likely something you'd hear in your kingdom, Joel. That's all hat and no cattle. Yeah. So go ahead, Joel.
I just wanted to point out with the with the virtual content, the best thing about it is that it's taxing on people for sure, because we all obviously miss being in person. But this is stuff that future generations, I'm saying in the SCA, are going to be able to find. These interviews, with their graces, where if a future, consort or inspiration is looking for what the hell am I getting myself into, they may find something like this. So we're really going to be helping, and I expect to see my name listed in a research paper in the future. Thank you.
Duly noted. And as we draw to a close today, Duchess Seonaid, this has been so much fun, and I appreciate your time and taking a chance on a couple of strangers. I mean, of course, we're in the SCA, so we're all strange to begin with.
We're not strangers anymore.
So what we like to do, though, is in the tradition of the great interkingdom basket exchanges, we prepared for you a virtual gift basket that we can't actually hand to you. But the benefit is we can put anything, and I mean anything we want in it. So first, a few questions that normally my head lady in waiting or someone would have asked, my people would have asked your people. Are you a dark or milk chocolate person?
More milk.
Milk chocolate. Okay. Are you a wine drinker? In that case, red or white?
Red.
Red. Okay. And puppies or kittens?
Oh, that's a toughie. Kittens. Right now, kittens. I have a lot of dog right now.
All right. Well, so we are giving you a beautiful gift basket. And first of all, the basket does not have a handle on it because they're a pain in the butt to pack back in your car. So this is a handleless basket, super important. And it has some kind of wonderful local milk chocolate. We have a chocolatier here in Seattle called Theo Chocolate. So we're going to give you some, like, their best shade grown organic milk chocolate bar, and a bottle of red wine, something, you know, light and accessible that you can drink with friends and not worry about, you know, it not going with whatever you're eating. And since you already have a dog, I think what we'll do is there's somebody with a kitten and you get to hold it for as long as you want and don't have to take care of it. You can hand it back. How's that?
Oh, I'm okay with taking care of it. I have 4 cats too.
Okay, well then, you know, we'll let you decide that.
Yeah, no, I live in a zoo. I have lots of animals, so.
But you get to decide if you're going to keep that kitten or not, and if not, it's going to go to a great home. So there's no pressure. You can just enjoy like that kitten smell.
Thank you so
And
much.
the other thing, since we can give you absolutely anything, I'm going to give you a free house elf that is not indentured. It is free, so it can choose to work for you, and it's going to make you some wonderful clothes that you don't have to make yourself. You don't have to repair, and you know it'll never tear. You don't have to do anything to it, and then in exchange, you just have to make clothes for the house elf. They're little, like it's like dressing a doll. So this is really good. And the other thing I would give you are a bunch of fleur-de-lis for your Crocs, those little Croc charms, so that you can cover your Crocs in your little Duchess fleur-de-lis kind of things. How's that?
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
God, I hope Cortland is watching right now. All right.
I mean, I think they sell fleur-de-lis. They don't sell strawberry leaves, I'm sure, but I think you can get fleur-de-lis for your Crocs. Now,
I have friends with 3D printers, so we.
Okay, then it should be strawberry leaves. Fleur-de-lis were just the closest I could get, so.
Oh God, that's great. All right, well, Grace, Seonaid, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this week. We really, really enjoyed your company and your experience and your stories. It was awesome. So seriously, thank you so much. I look forward to when we can all start playing together again. And I will gladly give you a big hug if you're a hugger. I don't know. I am.
I am a hugger.
I'll give you
Okay,
an
so you're a
elbow
hugger.
bump.
You know, with Dagmar, we're going to do the crisp high five or the elbow bump, as always. For everybody that was watching at home, thank you so much for joining us. Join us again next week. We're going to have Duchess Anna Terran joining us, which will be another fantastic interview. And that's it. Thanks so much, and everybody have a great week, and stay kind to each other.
Wash your hands, wear your mask.
Thank you for having me.